Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories where I go over them, analyze them, and on occasion, make fun of them. Today, going to go over a story titled, My Wife, a 29-year-old female, cheated on me, a 32-year-old male, and I hit her. And guys, this story is definitely one where the old saying, first time shame on them, second time shame on you. But in this guy's case, second, third, fourth, fifth time shame on him. This is a guy who meets a gal on vacation or he's traveling in Europe, and they hit it off, have a great few nights together, but ultimately end up together. And this woman is a train wreck. There's just no other way to put it. A liar, a cheater, just many, many negative qualities that she has. But this guy stays with her. And even though a lot of drama, and he does give it back to her, still stays with her and suffers so much because of her. Now, ordinarily, guys, the stories and the articles and personal stories I go over my other channel, those are more about they're entertainment, but they're also for learning and coaching and things like that. And this channel is more for entertainment, but there's definitely going to be some things I have to point out with regards to lessons involved in this story. But this thing is a never-ending drama fest, and ultimately the point of this whole thing is, initially, when someone wants a cheater, always a cheater, and initially somebody tells you and communicates through their words and actions early on who they really are, listen to them. Don't think that you're going to be different, or they're going to be different with you, or you're going to suffer. And cut these people out of your life. Cut them away like a cancer. So, it starts off, he says, this is a little lengthy, so I apologize and offer thanks to anyone who takes the time to read it. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. My wife and I met in 2008 when we were both traveling. We met in Madrid, and it was a very stereotypical meet cute. Our eyes met from across the bar, and I approached her. We ended up going home together that night. We spent the next 3 days having you-know-what and drinking and soaking up in the sun, and decided to keep in touch. Well, that's about the only part of this whole story that I'm thinking, okay, so far so good. Okay, no problem there. Met on a vacation, hooked up, okay. That's when he should have ended it. No more contact. Unfortunately, it doesn't go this way. He says, she went home. She went home, and I finished my travels, and we began a year-long, long-distance relationship before I moved to be with her. Okay, two big mistakes there. One, forming a long-distance relationship with her based on being with her for 3 days hooking up. He doesn't know anything about her. And it's all on vacation in another country, and it's magical and all that. That's not the way to form that's not the basis of a long-term relationship. And then two, as he said, he moved for her. He was in the submissive role. Not a good idea for a guy. He said, we end up, excuse me, guys. Over the course of the long-term relationship, she divulged to me that she had cheated on a previous boyfriend and felt bad about it, but felt his choice to dump her was over the top and that cheating wasn't always a silver bullet, especially since it was only a kiss. I realized how now she was sizing me up for my reaction and almost certainly cheating. Right there. That's when it should have been over with. Right there. Because obviously if she's done it in the past, she's going to do it again. Yes, she was sizing him up. And I don't buy the whole, it was only a kiss thing, given what I know about her going forward in this story. Should have walked away right then and there. People will eventually communicate who they really are. And you have to listen to them and not think that, they're different with that other guy or will be different with me. Pay attention or you will suffer down the road. Mark my words. He says, I realize now that she was sizing me up my reaction and almost certainly cheating. This I can actually forgive and let go because long-distance relationships and in the distant past, but not what happened last week. Dude, if you're in a long-distance relationship and she was cheating on you, again, this is a reason to walk away. You're only giving her permission to keep doing it to you. I told her at the time that it was a deal breaker, and if I caught her so much as flirting with another man, I would dump her. There were two absolute no's in a relationship, no violence and no cheating. Well, that obviously goes right over her head, as you're going to see here, because he should have broken up with her then, but he didn't. So she's like, this jackass will stay with me no matter what I do. A year after I moved, we got married. Smack. And a year later, again, she fell pregnant. I was overjoyed. 1 year, they got married a year later. They barely even know each other. He was obviously young. Some people never learn. She seemed distant and sad and anxious the first 2 months after finding out. And eventually, after I poked and prodded, she broke down and told me that she had a one-night stand around the time of conception and the kid might not be mine. What I tell you guys about first time, shame on them, second time, shame on you, and this guy, second, third, fourth, fifth, believe me, this doesn't stop. Some people never learn. I was on a plane back home 2 days later and didn't speak to her for a month. I ignored all her messages and calls, but eventually I caved and we talked. She said that she was going to get a paternity test, and if the baby wasn't mine, she would abort. But what she wanted was for me to come back first. Okay, keep in mind what she just said there. She volunteered that she would go through that procedure. I'm not going to say that word very often at this point, guys, because YouTube is pretty sensitive, and I don't need the video being flagged. It is what it is. I went back home, and she got the test. I was in the room when she got the results. Not mine. Big surprise. I told her she was scheduling the appointment that day, or I was going to divorce her. I was going to get a divorce lawyer as soon as I left the hospital. She scheduled the appointment for a week later. The day the appointment came, I drove her and held her hand as that procedure, under any circumstances, is a traumatic event for a woman. In the car, she broke down in tears and begged me to wait, change my mind, try to make it work. Everything but go through with it. And I looked her dead in the eye and told her, and this is his quote, "Do whatever you want, it's your body and your life, but I will not raise another man's child. That child will be the living embodiment of your betrayal and a daily reminder of what you did. I will not subject myself to that. The procedure or a divorce." He's giving her a choice. Now, this is not a channel about politics, so I'm not going to get into any of that, and I hope that people watch this don't do the same thing, because as you can imagine, the comments on this story is all full of them. I'm just reading it off. It is what it is. Now, he made a point to say this, and he put it in bold just for, obviously, as a reaction, a response to comments he got. He says, "Edit for detail, I wanted a divorce. As soon as she hesitated, I jumped right to divorce. I never tried to talk her into it. I advised against the procedure. She didn't want to keep the kid and lose the marriage. She wanted both. She told me directly that she would do the procedure if I left her regardless. She even told me before I flew back that even if the baby was mine and I divorced her, she'd be getting the procedure. She wanted specifically to keep the child and have me raise it with her unless I stayed and she was getting the procedure no matter what. This was not happening. She asked me if she had it, if I would give her another chance. I said yes. I love my wife, effing sue me. I'm not sorry I refused to play daddy to her infidelity spawn." Okay. He just wanted to make that clear. But the point is, this guy, for his faults, he said, look, I'm not raising somebody else's child. You know, you can do what you want to do. But anyhow, she got the procedure. There were complications, and she was on bed rest for a month. For a while after, she was short with me, unaffectionate and cold. We lost the spark. I tried, she didn't. She's holding it against you. She told me one night after a few drinks that she resented me for making her choose. I told her I was glad she got the procedure, as she deserved to suffer for what she'd done. That's pretty, I get that. I understand you're obviously upset, but that sounds pretty harsh, dude. I regretted saying this out loud immediately, even though that is exactly how I felt and still feel. One day I came home extra early from work and found her crying on the couch with a man next to her holding her. Well, here we go again, another dude. A man I met many times before, a man she worked with. The look on their faces told me everything I needed to know. He was the father. It wasn't a one-night stand. After I dragged him out of the house by his neck, she admitted they had a 3-month-long affair. I will never know if this is the extent of the truth. To this day, I accept that and have stopped asking. Remember, this is the girl in the beginning who brought up the whole thing about what he thought about cheating and if it was a kiss and all this other stuff. Doesn't stop. This guy should have ended with her the second. He should have gotten a relationship with, let alone married her, but especially after she brought up the whole cheating thing. And then after that whole thing, that obviously she got pregnant because someone else's child, he should have ended it. Walked away. Nope. And here we go again. I began divorce proceedings and immediately kicked her out of the house. She begged and cried and pleaded for months. And again, stupidity, I broke and took her back. Smack. I told her she had to quit her job and cut contact. She agreed and made the call there and then. We moved away to another city and bought a house in mine and at the other end of the country. If you think getting her to quit her job and moving to another part of the country is going to change her and have her stop doing these things, you're out of your damn mind, because a person, they're who they are wherever they live. It doesn't make a difference they live in Massachusetts, California, or on the freaking moon. It doesn't matter. People aren't going to change because of where they live or they change their jobs. And this will come back, as you can imagine, to haunt him. We went to marriage counseling and got better. Slowly but surely, we went from strength to strength. We now both had total transparency on all accounts and accepted that's the way it was. As time went on, I stopped looking at her phone. Things were great between us. Our SEX life was great. We're both travel junkies and went on lots of trips and started talking about having kids. We tried for 2 years to conceive a child and it hadn't happened yet, but the practice was a lot of fun, so what the hell. So, she's been behaving herself, they've been in therapy and all that, and he thinks everything's great. We can forget about the past because she's a changed woman. Well, you're going to see that the second she starts being unhappy, as people that are often cheaters do, that's when they step out. This was the case for years. I was completely unguarded and my defenses were down when the most recent event happened. She had gotten slightly distant for a couple months, but not so much that I was worried. Well, you should have been. Because it sounds like the pattern is when she suddenly gets distant and quiet and cold, that's when the cheating's going on. I asked her about it, and she always made a point of being affectionate when I did and assuring me it was all good. But her default, when not being prompted, was to be quiet and seek out her own space. Translation, she sees that you're getting concerned. She realizes, oh shit, I better start being a little affectionate or he's going to start snooping on my phone, or maybe things might go south in our marriage because I don't really want to be alone. So I'll give him a little loving, the bare minimum, and then he'll keep him off my tracks. He says, one night she was out drinking with her friends and I stayed at home. I woke up at 4 a.m. and heard her voice downstairs. I went out and asked her if that was her, and no answer. She didn't hear me. I guessed pretty quickly that she was on her phone, and due to the time it was, her recent withdrawal, and her dubious relationship with loyalty, I decided to listen in. She was laughing and flirting and saying shit like, I miss you too, and I love you too. I knew it was him. I was certain of it. Then she started talking about the hotel, how good the room service was, and how when she could see him again, and I had heard enough. This is the woman that he thought changed. Relocated a different part of the country, therapy, all that stuff. Everything's great. Wrong. People don't change. I charged down the stairs like a bull, and she knew she had been caught. She started yelling and screaming and cursing me, shouting that she'd been to a doctor here, and they told her that during the procedure there was some sort of problem. She was drunk and slurring her words and crying, but somewhere in the minutia of words like tear and scar tissue and permanent. I got it out of her that her uterus had been damaged and was unlikely she could ever bring a baby to term. She found this out 3 months prior, right around the time she started getting distant again. See? I grabbed the phone out of her hand. She tried to take it back. We clawed back and forth until I shoved her back on the couch, and I told her not to get back up until I told her to. I sat in the chair opposite of her and went through every detail. A half dozen text messages from him asking when was she going to be leaving the bar, and that he missed her voice and how much fun they'd had. Obviously, all the other messages had been deleted, but she hadn't had a chance to delete the ones from that night yet. You know, you want to feel bad for guys that are in situations like this, but then again, he brought this on himself. He had multiple opportunities to end it and walk away, but he was just blind. And obviously this dude was in his 20s and obviously very inexperienced. And he's obviously learning the hard way. So I do videos like these guys to help guys see these real life situations that they don't get into them themselves. I read the messages aloud and she stared at me with daggers in her eyes. I asked her over and over to explain herself, and eventually she jumped up and started screaming again. She screamed that she'd taken the day off work and dove to meet him halfway, and they effed in a hotel all day. She screamed that when she got the news from the doctor, she saw me as the enemy and he was her ally. She screamed at me that she wasn't sorry and that I ruined her life. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she's the one that had the affair on him and got pregnant with someone else's child. And the guy flat out told her, you got a choice. Either you go through a procedure, because I'm not going to raise somebody else's child, or we're getting divorced. If she wanted to keep that child, and obviously the dude she was having the affair with was more important to her than this guy she married. So, honestly, she should have divorced him, went with that guy, and he'd raise his son and all that. But so this was on her too. But of course, she's made this guy out to be the villain, and she's going to punish him. I yelled back that I was glad she got the procedure, and that I would off him and take that away from her too if I would, meaning the lover. She slapped me across the face. Ooh. And I slapped her back. Hard. It was open-handed, but proportionally much harder than she hit me. She fell back onto the couch and looked at me in stunned and in disbelief as she held her face and began to sob. Nobody should be striking each other. Make that clear. Throwing dishes, smashing chairs, hitting each other, no. But in this case, she struck him first. She reached for her phone, and I snatched it away from her, throwing it and smashing it against the wall. I went up to my room and paced back and forth, and she sat downstairs crying, and that's where we stayed until morning. When I got downstairs, she was asleep. I woke her up and told her to get in the shower and get out. That I already made an appointment with my lawyer to file for divorce, and she wasn't staying in the house while I was gone. She sobbed and begged me not to go through with it. She said that she was drunk and didn't mean it. Oh, okay, so was she drunk and didn't mean it when she was hooking up with that dude and communicating with that dude and all these other things? And remember, this is just what this guy found out. He obviously doesn't know the whole story because she is a liar and a cheater. The best thing this guy can do is divorce her, whatever it costs in terms of the divorce, splitting of assets, alimony, whatever it is, and get away and start over and learn from this awful experience. She said she only made up the story about meeting him to hurt me and that I was her one and only blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure. She said she was so sorry that she hit me and didn't want an apology for me hitting her back, that she deserved it. I agreed she deserved it and told her it was good she wasn't waiting for an apology because she wouldn't be getting one. That was last week. This week, she's back living with her parents. She calls me every day, 10 times a day. She sends lengthy, weepy text messages that I don't reply to. As my lawyer says, I shouldn't contact her unless through him. I'm going through with a divorce. Good. Thank the Lord. Okay? You screwed up, dude, many times. I stopped counting by taking her back in spite of all her obvious lying and cheating and all that and deception, but early on, you rushed into it. You moved with her, got married too soon, not really knowing her. And early on, she pretty much told you who she was, but you didn't believe it, and there you go. But she's obviously a lowlife too. Get away from her. Now, he has a little update he wants to mention here because obviously all the heat he was getting in the comments section. And he says, an important note I left out that I have answered on numerous comments, and it wasn't until someone pointed out I should have mentioned it in the original post. She stated she had no interest in raising the baby alone. If I divorced her, she was going through with it. She didn't want to keep the baby, and I made her get rid of it. She wanted us both to keep it and be the father of the child, the man that she cheated with. At this point, I still believe the pregnancy was due to a one-night stand. She had a weekend away with the girls. She was not on a weekend trip with the girls. Yeah, that part, but the weekend trip with the girls, she was with that dude. So, there you go, guys. Perfect example. Again, this is kind of along the lines of the stories I do my other channel, which is helping guys with things and lessons involved. But this is a crazy story. This is a whole drama roller coaster. But the point is, once a cheater, always a cheater. When people show you who they are through their actions and also their words, listen to them and move on. Don't think you can change them and all that, but listen to all this shit this guy dealt with. Now, here's the thing, guys. This is his version of the story. There is her version of the story, which I'm going to do tomorrow, which will be part 2 to this. And it'll be entertaining for you guys to hear her take on this whole thing. And it's long as well, so you get your money's worth. So when I publish that one, grab a beer and some popcorn because it'll be interesting. So, all right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.